and welcome to Take the Lead, the podcast with Tasman. I am extremely excited. We have put together a special treat just for you. I'm excited for today's guest, but before we dive into the conversation, I want to go ahead and encourage you to simply like, share, and leave us a comment wherever you are listening to this podcast or viewing its content. Listen, the Take the Lead podcast is designed with simple conversations that will inspire, catapult, and even provoke you on your leadership journey. Whether you are a spouse, a parent, a coach, or even a mid-levels manager or a budding entrepreneur and CEO, there is conversation that will definitely educate and add value to your leadership journey. So go ahead and share this episode, and we will be right back. Again, thank you for joining Take the Lead, the podcast. This is Tasman J, and I am extremely excited. I have a performance coach, a catapulter of leadership, a guru, an authority in his own right, man. Listen, if I had a dictionary, I would flip through to all the adjectives that are befitting, but one who I think is sincerely, who is indeed an instrument in catapulting your mindset as well as your attitude, and then equipping you on this leadership journey. And of course, it is my privilege to have joined the podcast today, Franco Charles. How are you, my brother? How are you?
Thank you so much, Mr. Tasman, to be on your show. I'm telling you, you're doing a fantastic job. I'm doing very well, very, very well. I'm just staying productive, staying focused, and it's great delight to be on your show.
Awesome. The privilege is definitely ours. One of the first questions that I normally is a conversation starter on the podcast, and that is in your leadership journey throughout serving and now even training leaders. What are some of the elements that you have found to be consistent with leadership?
One of the things I found, that's a very good question, and thank you for asking that. One of the things that I found to be very, very relevant, and it's a very, very consistent question that's always asked, is how can I keep my team committed? So leaders are asking that, managers are asking that, and because of the changing times, they just want to know, will there be security of anyone showing up to support the vision, to support production? And that has been one of the number one questions that we've been receiving.
Well, with the dynamics, of course, with the global pandemic, a lot is changing within organization. A lot has changed. And of course, in order to remain relevant with regard to how our systems of leadership or organizations are structured, there's going to have to be quite a bit of dynamics that are reshuffled or changed.
Right.
We're talking about advanced leadership, and one of the things that I want us to dive into, you talk about persons asking about the structure of team and what's not. Let's start with we're talking about team, and of course one of the things that is common within organizations, whether it is church, volunteer groups, and even in the marketplace, and that is culture. First of all, share with us who defines culture within the team or organization.
He told me to be prepared for you, and you told me to be prepared for you as well. That is an interesting question. I've never been asked that question before. Who prepares the culture? The culture is in itself, it's really an organic evolving of each person contributing to the overall flow. One of my major focuses being OD, which is organization development. It is providing the key skills and also the performance personalities that combines the overall flow that creates the organizational function. But culture is a little different. Though the organizational flow requires everybody to show up. Culture in itself requires that everyone show up with the right attitude. So when we ask the question, what helps create or shape the culture in any business, any church, it's really the attitude, Tasman, of those that are coming in and ensuring that they add to the overall flow, which makes the organization really, really smooth. So it's everybody, to answer your question, it's everyone showing up.
I love that. And it suggests that, you know, with beyond the title, beyond the particular contribution that you have with regard to how it's defined, that there's value in everyone as a team player. And I even think of in sports, oftentimes when you have a wide receiver who is rushing to catch the ball, if those two guys that are running alongside of him aren't blocking the person who is anticipated to catch the ball, you know, that's this wide receiver, you know, his function becomes hindered, right?
That is correct.
And then oftentimes you have the quarterback who also is being protected, but you often see either the receiver or a tight end is praised more, celebrated more, but each one of them add value to the team, and each of their roles, like you're suggesting, adds to the culture of
absolutely
the team.
Correct.
And that is great. To piggyback on that, how do we add value to each team player that we can sustain a winning culture? And
that
I
is
think
very,
that's
very good. That is very, you actually answered that in itself. How to create that culture to be winning. When you talk about culture, there's so much that has been said over the last 3 decades and even beyond. Culture is very, 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 very simple. I mentioned the word attitude because attitude reflects leadership. And you also mentioned very, very insightfully how they showed up on the field and how they're not getting in the way of each other, or they avoid to not get in the way of each other. So that helps us to understand something, that culture is a language that is supported by attitude, but it's communicated in advance. Now, have you ever seen any other place that you probably went before, a restaurant, perhaps a movie theater, or wherever you go where there's a number of people working behind the scene? Have you ever noticed that everywhere there is culture? Now, in order for that environment, whether it be a business, a company, a church, or enterprise of any kind, to be a culture that's winning, they must apply those 3 things: attitude, language, and they must be communicating. You just can't show up and start to have culture. Culture must be intentional. So in order for you to have a winning culture, you must be intentional. You must have people with the right attitude. You can't have somebody showing up with one mindset. And you see that all the time. It's like, Jesus, did you come to the meeting? You could tell when somebody missed the meeting or they miss an opportunity to get the updates, to get the work description. And that's what I came to find out over a period of time. When that attitude is not there, when that language is not there, and when there's no communication, it is the recipe for disaster. And obviously, with the opposite, there is no winning in a culture like that. But if we do those 3 things prior, that culture will always be winning.
You know, I think of, and I remember when I served in an organization, one of the things that was rehashed in every training and almost every staff meeting was the vision of the organization. And you know, I've served in companies where the vision, as a matter of fact, I've worked and left and still don't know the vision of those organizations, right? And you know, you're talking about attitude, but you're talking about attitude and communicating, you know, as well. And so in that component of these three makeups, right? As the leader, do you think consistently sharing the mission or the vision, or even casting it in a way that some persons may come in with an attitude that is relevant to an old organization, assuming that what they're going to do as a key role player is going to fit here, so how do you cast vision so that your new players or key players remain relevant towards the winning culture of an organization?
That's been your questions. I keep on telling you. Very good. Wow. I'm telling you, questions are great. The answer to that is simply this. The worst thing any organization can say, the worst thing any organization can echo within its culture or even in its environment, is that we've always done it this way. Now, you're going to have culture by two ways. You're going to have culture by default, or you're going to have culture by being intentional. Everywhere has a culture. And I think what we're diving into this evening is to find out whether or not that culture is causing that church, again, that business, that enterprise, that young entrepreneur, that leader, that company, is it winning? Well, the proof is always in the pudding, and results does not lie. A winning culture gives you the intended, desired results, not just results. We've worked with organizations, they're getting results, but it's not what they intended. Wow. When the culture is right, Tasman, when the culture is right, and when the culture is effectively and efficiently constructed, and it's framed, it gives you, as you mentioned, the vision of what you intended for it to produce. You said something, and I want to add this. Vision supports culture. So any leader, when you're having a meeting, we tell them all the time, do not speak to your team about product production. When we go in and we do training, we never talk about the product. When we go into a church, we never talk about the congregation, because that is the last result. In other words, people come for a why. They come for an experience. So when the leader is having his staff meeting, his core meeting, you only want to talk about the vision, which is future, the mission, which is the heartbeat, and you want to talk about the objectives, which are the legs. And when people begin to hear that, whether it be a staff member, an employee, a church member, somebody part of the team, that's what they go out there with, and they create the frame of that culture because of the vision, the mission, and the objective. And remember I said earlier, it organically shapes itself. Such a beautiful evolution, by the way, when you allow it to be done right.
That's good. You said the mission is the heartbeat, the vision is
the future.
Is the future, and the objective are the legs.
Are the little legs and hands that get everything done, So when those things are not there, most of the time, like you said, you went to an organization, you worked for companies, and you left without even knowing. You performed, but I guarantee you something would happen. You performed at a level of average. And you didn't intend to. Because I know by nature, man, you from the Bahamas, we work hard.
But I'll tell you something too. And I think of two particular organizations that I loved what I was doing, but then feeling as though there was a plateau and it was time to find something else that was challenging. And I'm finding value in everything you're saying, because when I think of for the persons that are leaders within organizations, you lose competent, skilled, or awesome team players, especially if they feel like they outgrow. And of course, if they don't know where the vision is going. I can't remember who is quoted as saying this, but a ship without a port of destination will always find its place. In other words, if your aim is nowhere, you will definitely end up nowhere.
That is correct. That is
Right.
correct. That is correct. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And one of the things that you're actually echoing, and which is so good too, because I love the way you talk, because you paint pictures, and it costs me to really capture what you're saying as well. Any culture that's not framed correctly, a bad culture loses good people.
And talk about that. Because I think of even a leader who, and I want to segue even just for a few minutes when you're talking about bad culture, because you have some leaders who bring on awesome team players.
I've seen it.
Who become cancerous to an organization.
Yes, sir.
Right? Or for a pastor, the usher won't smile. Or for a company, your perfect salesperson can't gel with other team members, and so it becomes a tense culture, right?
Right.
You were talking about advanced leadership and even team building. How do you have that conversation with whether it is a team in the organization and individual? How do you have that conversation so that the vision is aligned with them mentally, the mission is in their heart, and even because they may be excellent with the running with the objectives, but the mission is missing, right? Help have that conversation with having those difficult conversations with those hard to get along team members, or it might even be the leader.
It's always the leader. It's always the leader.
It's always the leader.
Yes, sir. It's always the leader. The leader's
I have to ask why.
It's all about learning. It's all about how equipped. It's all about how skilled the leader may be, because the leader is responsible for the vision. The leader is responsible for the culture. However you go into a place and you find a culture, that leader created the climate. You've heard this before. The leader sets the climate in the organization. It's not me. Those are the experts that says it as well. When you come into my house, we set the thermostat to 72. Somebody had to turn on the thermostat. Somebody had to set the temperature. That is the very same thing that every leader in every organization, 500 Fortune companies, churches, it doesn't matter. The leader is responsible for two major things. And if there's nothing else, he must take responsibility, he or she. You're responsible for the vision, because every effective leader must have a vision or go find something else to do. And you set the culture. The culture, again, is the attitude, the language, and the communication within that organization. So those that are watching, when we say culture, now, when somebody is coming into your culture, they must adapt to the language, to the communication, and to the attitude. If the leader allow it to persist and nobody addresses that, that is what creates the breakdown in organization. The leader must be confident and courageous enough to always manage and discipline suspicious behavior that goes against the culture. Tasman, there is no option. You must deal with it. And there's ways you can deal with it. You be tactful, you be respectful, but I can tell you right now, you cannot ignore that. You can't ignore it. You have to address that matter.
That's good. And you know, I'm hearing the buck stops with the leader, right? And one of the things you shared, or one of the words you mentioned, which was the word take, that they have to take initiative. Of course,
Yes, sir.
It leaped out on me because, of course, the podcast name is Take the Lead, right?
Take the lead.
And I guess one of the questions that I have for you is, because of course organizations, teams, they go through seasons of growth. They go through seasons of where
Absolutely.
it feels as though the organization is coasting, and the leader is the one who is casting vision. We have, in March of 2020, organizations, churches, companies everyone has been impacted by this global pandemic.
Yes, sir.
And one of the questions that I want to ask you is, how do you remain relevant and keep your team relevant with regard to team development, because you're leading in a bewildering time, through trenches that you've never navigated before. And all of this for many leaders are new in terms of the difficulty of the navigation. So how do you for the lack of a better expression, grab the bull by the horn and lead in such a time?
I did a training on that. That's a great question. Again, I did a training for an organization actually in the Bahamas, and we were talking about leading through crisis. I wish so many leaders will just know that there's help out there. Two things. Crisis is something a leader should show up for. If the leader is not prepared, crisis will show up the leader.
That's good. That's very good.
Crisis is what we show up for. If the leader is not prepared, if the leader is not getting outside sources of consultation, like all wise leaders, wise organizational entrepreneurs and business owners I've known and worked with, they know how to go out of the box. Tasman. First thing I'll tell a leader is, get out of your own head. Most leaders, when they're going through challenging times and wanting to keep the team together, they don't look for help. First thing is, get out of your own head. When you stay in your own head, you think everything you're doing is right. You think everything you're doing is creative. There are people assigned, professionals like yourself, like myself, and many others that can assist. Get out of your own head. Secondly, find help. You don't have to waste your time, which it is your responsibility, but man, you're in a crisis. You have to be thinking about organizational restructuring. You have to be thinking about finances. You can only imagine, Tasman, all of the headache and the pressure leaders have placed on themselves during this time. Get out of your head, find help. Now, here is the bonus. When you find help, you have somebody to come in, and you're trying to keep people working with you. They themselves are going through a major crisis. I tell leaders, pay attention to the 3 C's. Number 1, you must lead now because we are in crisis. You must lead with care. You must lead with communication, and you must lead with convenience. Because of this shift, leaders have now been challenged to no longer offer leadership management. We must combine both. And that invokes where we care for the people. Try to get people on your team and don't have a system in place to let them know we care for you. You must communicate, and you must have convenience. I'll end by saying this. The convenience part is key. Don't ask people to do more than what they are unwilling to do as before. Before we could have them to drive. Leaders are very insensitive to that, because Keep in mind, the leader is driven by his passion and his vision. I need this thing done. I need this done. We need production. No more can you do that in this time of crisis. So what am I saying, Tasman? Soft skills is the order of the day. And most leaders, they have more hard skills than soft skills.
One of the things that pops to mind as you were conversing is, as the leader, the need for yourself, even as team development, is something that is always relevant. The intrapersonal development is even more significant, right? Because if you're not skilled in leading with care, then you become the cancer of the organization or the team. The same is, like you started to share with the persons that are who are high end hard skills and not personable or lead with compassion.
Yes, sir.
You find that people, and I read something in last year, how many persons are leaving organizations and careers that they've spent decades in studying and building, because now they're finding value in things that are lessly monetized, but are more significant to them, right? And so what you're sharing is so significant, because of course, if your organization is going to remain cutting edge, if your whether it's team or volunteer community, your church, if it's going to remain relevant, you have to like you shared in the C's, lead with care, lead with communication, and convenience, right? And excuse me,
most organizations might interject, find it hard to embrace that.
What has been the hardest part that you found organizations to accept, or
all of it, because of habit.
Yes.
Because of habit. It's one way. Now, it's not all leaders. Let me say that, please, for our listeners. It's not everybody. But trying to get this new concept across. And you're right. People were leaving places where they felt as though that they were being undervalued, where they did not feel that soft touch. So regardless if you and I are saying this here on the broadcast, it's already in motion. Leaders must find a different way to lead people. And it's not because of the crisis. It's the changing of the times. People want to feel where they are safe.
Yes.
And we are responsible to create that. If you're a pastor in your church, how do people feel? Do they feel safe? Do they feel secure? Do they feel that this is where they want to be? And I told the pastor, listen, we have to create that ooh la la or that kumbaya moment. Those are the moments that make people feel at this time that they are in a secure environment. Why? Because everybody is going through a tough time. And I'm not showing up to my job where they trying to be hard on me. I'll pack up my little box and go home too, Tasman.
and what I'm hearing in your talking is your leading with care, communication, your leading with convenience is not just something you say, right?
No.
And I think of something like when you go to a restaurant, someone would have referred to you and said, man, Franco, listen, when you go there, you have to get the steak Diane. Trust me. On your second or third time, get anything else. But on your first one, get the steak Diane. You've heard it. The referral, you've heard it. But when you go in and the culture is, it takes long for someone to seat you, or you're giving your food, but your wife's not giving her food for another 20 minutes, or all of these add to the experience, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so even though you have the referral in your ear that someone suggested you must try out this restaurant, the experience or the culture that you would have encountered speaks louder volume than
the referral.
Than the referral.
That is correct, sir. Wow.
This is awesome, man. Listen, one more time for those
Your
of you that
questions
just
are awesome.
if you are just joining Take the Lead, the podcast, we have empowerment trainer Franco Charles with us, and we are talking advanced leadership, everything from team development to creating a sustainable culture for any organization. And we are extremely excited. One more time, I want to encourage you to go ahead and share this episode as we are continuing in the conversation. Excuse me. So one of the things that I want to just take a few minutes to converse about, share with our listening audience, one of the things, or all of the things that you do with regard to your organization and adding value by going in and assisting persons with strategy and leadership development. Share with those that are listening, what is it that you and your wife do?
Thank you so much. Well, one of the key things, Carol and I, my wife, we founded Empower Leadership, and the main focus of Empower Leadership is providing organization development and team development. Our main focus is building core teams, and we help business owners, companies, churches to gather the right set of people around them to help them carry that vision. Combined with that, we provide also one-on-one coaching. That one-on-one coaching, we have a 3 months, 6 months program where we walk you through some of these strategies that we have developed over the last 7-10 years, and are now allowing them to be more like a 6-step program in giving individuals the opportunity to apply it as well. For example, we go into an organization, just to give you a clear picture, and if the organization was not succeeding, I would say around about 3 to 4 months, the organization start taking on the shape because of the 6 things that we provide. And I can just give you 3 of them. Number 1, we focus on your team, making sure that your team is committed and understand your vision and your mission. Number 2, we establish a corresponding funnel, which we're able to communicate to your team on a consistent basis. And number 3, we maintain ongoing training and development for your team. And of course, the other 3, if you want to know more, you can go to www.empower.training. We'll be able to give you more. But the main thing about it is that we help you to build. Empower Leadership, our why is very, very simple. It's empowering you to empower others. Tasman, that's basically what we do. We really get alongside with leaders and make their load much easier.
I permit me, I hope I am not
permission granted.
But listen, I'm getting goosebumps because I'm thinking of the converse. I don't know if you can see my pause. But I want to ask you to share something that you shared with me on one of our initial conversations.
Okay.
And when we jumped on the phone, you shared something with me. Now, I grew up in church, and of course, the podcast consists of a lot of kingdom conversations and content. And you shared something with me that when I hung up the phone, I started to share with my wife. I said, listen, I was conversing with this guy, and man, I feel like the conversation, 6 minutes of the conversation almost feels like 4 years of university content, right?
You have that effect on people.
You have that effect on people. But you started to share with me a story out of the book of Acts.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And I won't introduce it, but I want you to share with our listeners something that you shared with me, because I thought that was so powerful. It was powerful. Yes, if you are a mother and you're trying to organize your kids with online learning and making sure that X, Y, and Z is taken care of, or you might be a branch manager, and yet, or even a pastor. The principle that you shared with me, I thought was so profound. So would you share with those that are listening?
I'll be more than happy to do that. You mentioned it all started from Acts chapter 6 and Acts chapter 3. One of the key elements or the key focus of Empower Leadership is that we provide biblical principles that supports biblical strategies. We're all about strategies. And in Acts chapter 6, you found something for the very first time. And I talked about how when structure and system is in place, it alleviates and it just eliminates anything that will have a potential chaos, whether it be in your home, in your business, and in your church, or whatever area you're building something. Chaos is going to be the number one bulldozer to stop progress. When there is chaos and you're unable to identify where it's coming from, you're unable to stop the bleeding, stop whatever it is happening, you're not going to progress. Our responsibility when we go in, Tasman, we look for the chaos. Now, as you're building, you do not want to spend time focusing on looking for chaos. I've watched organization over the years, there's chaos after chaos after chaos. That's an easy fix. Leaders, listen to me. Whoever you are, business owners, you own a company, that's an easy fix. The way you fix chaos, according to Acts chapter 6, as Tasman is mentioned, you begin to create systems and structure. Now, for the very first time in the book of Acts, you found the apostles. They were going to pray. They had a set appointment. They had an agenda. Not with Bill Gates, y'all. They had an appointment set with God on a specific time, on a specific day. Unfortunately, on this day when they were going, they had to be interrupted. They were interrupted and they could not keep their appointment with God. What an insult to God. What is the point and the principle of that? Chaos always hinder your appointments. You cannot afford that, because that could be a moment you can receive new ideas. You see where I'm going with this, Tasman? That is why most leaders are working with last year ideas, last 3 years, 3-year ideas, because they're not, you mentioned, I gotta piggyback on what you said. That's why most organizations are not relevant. Relevance is from God. Revelation. You've heard that before. If you're going to be revelated and have revelation and be relevant, you must be hearing from the revelator. Well, that day they could not go. They were stopped. They could not move forward. I'll end by saying this as I give you a few more points. Now, if prayer, which was their current function and performance, did not fix the chaos, Tasman, this is why I began to have the major investigation. They set up system. They said, find seven that will be over the responsibility, over what was happening. Over what? The chaos. Because as long as chaos is remaining, the organization will be limited in growth. 7, write this down, is the number of systems. Over the years, I've looked closely at this. Moses went through the same experience. Many leaders went through other experiences, and they understood that I must set system in place. Leaders, I close by saying, if you do not have system and structure in place, the right support team, individuals that are pushing and aiding and contributing to your culture, I must tell you this right now, you will work harder. You are not intended to work hard. That is not God's design. It's not God's intent. And here is the intent that was found in Acts 6. We're going to put you all over this responsibility, and we will give ourselves to the word and prayer. Word and prayer is not only the two forces that governs the church function, performance for global impact. It is the leader, spiritual leader, and you can apply this for your business as well, number one objective and focus for influence. You take you away from the word and prayer, unfortunately, if you're a spiritual leader, you will not survive. For a business, the system, the structure, and the right people, and of course, you need prayer as well, will allow you to have the success that you're looking for.
Listen to me. Listen to me. You are phenomenal, and some of you said I don't want it to go over the listener's head, but so I wanted you to repeat that. You said when you don't have the right system or team in place, the leader works harder. I don't want to mess up it. You say
when you look at it, Tasman, it's more of God's safeguard for the leader. If you're a pastor, especially if you're a pastor, but it's a principle that can also carry over into companies and businesses or whatever you're doing as a parent. You must set systems around you. System protects energy. Systems eliminates chaos. Systems ensure growth. So if you're not adding to you, and I tell people all the time, oh, you're starting a business, great. Oh man, I'm getting ready to get my website and my logo. I said that you're focusing on the wrong stuff. They're like, what do you mean? I said, you need to get helpers. But I can't hire nobody. You got cousins, you got uncles, you got aunts. I say they are your support group. And even any major network marketing company, they tell you all the time, the inner circle, the outer circle, and the outer circle. They say, start with your family. Remember this, family, friends, and your neighbors, right? The reason why is because when what you're doing feels support, somehow you feel more safe. And that's why they have to set that in place to make sure nothing interrupt that. But you know what the big thing was about, Tasman? Food. The daily distribution. You'll see a whole lot of people's attitude when the food ain't distributed correctly.
But you know, one of the things that is ringing loud when I heard you talk about it just now is systems allow you to say no, and it allows you, or it sets up the structure so saying no is easy, right?
That is correct.
Because when I think of even the story that you're sharing, and these were the apostles, and you know, these are the guys that walk with Christ, and yet in the middle of chaos, the apostle Peter,
they had a pause.
In the middle of it, you know, the apostle Peter did not get up to fix it, but establishing or saying to them, which was delegating them, and that's what I want to talk about. But before I want to talk about that. But he delegated them for you guys to be the problem solvers, and it permitted him to say, "No, I'm not getting up to to organize or distribute food."
That's right. That's right.
And so I think that is so powerful, and I one of the things that I've come to learn in leadership is often the simplest things are the things that we run past so quickly because, you know, it's too simple to have such a profound impact. And yet when you pause and realize that, you know, like you're saying, that systems allow you, or system gives you the structure that you're able to say no. You delegated. And imagine if they had not someone who was distributing the food that he could say you. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to segue into we're talking about advanced leadership and team development. One of the things that I have found in conversing with leaders, and even when I have served in some organizations, even I remember when I was in youth ministry, one of the greatest challenges Tasman had, and I find that a lot of the persons who I converse with that are gifted or talented is when something's not being done right, they will take it and do it themselves, right? As opposed to allowing, and you talk about team development, no baby that I know came out the womb walking, right? So I want you to help Tasman as a leader, but those that are listening, help with recognizing the significance of you know, team development with regard to the leader recognizing when to say no, when to lead, walking alongside someone, and then even the leading with care, with going back to someone and saying, here's what you should have done, X, Y, and Z. Help us with that delegating process.
The delegation is very, very important. In fact, if you look at it, you mentioned it, I'm telling you, I could talk to you all night with this, because you hit the points already. You said Peter was the one that actually recognized it. So that's the first thing. He recognized his ability and his lack of. And he said, you know what? I know what my responsibilities are. And the leader must recognize the responsibility. But there's only a few spiritual responsibility for those spiritual leaders. You know, you're responsible to feed us, to develop us so that we come into the maturity of Christ for those that are listening and part of the church. Same thing as relates to a company or a business. You're responsible to provide the tools, the work descriptions, the direction, the guiding, the mission, all of that for your staff and for your employees. Now, I will say you have to delegate. You have to delegate. There is no option. There is no whether or not I'm going to do it. You do it with wisdom. The reason why they were able to find 7 so quick, they said, let us look among us. And I tell leaders all the time, they are among you. I had one guy said, I don't see them. Well, that's why we're here. You've been with them for so long, you don't even see their potential and their ability. First thing, the leader must know that they are there. You must be able to see it. Second thing is, the leader must know, I don't have to do it. That is a good one. Leaders, listen to me. Admit to yourself and tell yourself once in a while. Pastors, business owners, those that are watching right now, you have to tell yourself, I don't have to do it. Number 1, you have to recognize it. Number 2, you have to be able to tell yourself, I don't have to do it. Number 3, you are responsible to equip that person or select those people. And by doing that, you give small tasks. In this case, they could have given the larger task because the people already committed. They gave qualification. Those that are filled with the Spirit, those that have honesty, those that have integrity, those that have faith. So they existed. I will say to all of you, find those same qualities in your leaders as well. It'll make your work easy. So the leader must find them, accept them, and train them. Give them small tasks. 5, 2, and 1, based on their ability. But Tasman, there is no option. You have to delegate.
Right. And I think one of the lessons in that is trusting the training that you've done, right?
That's right. That's right.
If you know are confident that what you have poured into your leaders or your team players, your members, that
Good.
what you've done is quality content, trust it.
That's right. That's
Know,
right.
and that's so significant. Again, for those of you that are listening to the podcast, this is Tasman J, and I'm extremely excited because we have empowerment trainer, coach extraordinaire, authority and leadership. I don't know a lot of adjectives, but awesome is what I do know. We have Franco joining the podcast, and we're talking about advanced leadership, team building, creating culture, and even leading with care, leading through communication, leading with convenience, right? And so if you're listening, we want you to go ahead and simply share wherever you're listening from. The content is definitely going to inspire your leadership journey. It is going to, for some of you, catapult your thinking with regard to how you're leading your organization, leading your home. For those that would love to contact you and even to have coaching done or have you join their organization, share with them how they can get in contact with you.
Thank you, Tasman. You can go to www.empower.training. That is our website. Now, if you go on there and you don't find specific topics or training that may relate to you, trust me, we have archives of training. And of course, for a website, we just provided just a few. And our one-on-one coaching, you can also sign up there as well. We walk you through the strategies and the steps and provide you with the empowerment strategies, tips, and skills to know how to develop yourself. I always say Empowerment is not something you just do. It's a lifestyle. Being able to show up with your employees and your staff. If you're a pastor, you're showing up energized. That's not fake. That's real. And there is a way you can become that and be that by being infused and passionate with your vision and always showing up. I always say this: if the leader doesn't inspire, then his team will expire. So you have no choice. If the leader doesn't inspire, you must show up. Somebody say, "Oh, you're full of energy." I don't have a choice. You don't have a choice, Tasman. If the leader doesn't inspire, then his team will expire. And you can just go to Facebook and look up Franco Charles. You can go to Instagram, Empower Leadership. You'll see my wife and I there. We'll be more than happy to give you more information to work with you.
You know, one of the things that I think of, if you go to your general physician for a regular checkup and they see something that requires some special attention, they will do what they call a referral. And so they will have you to go and see a cardiologist, an oncologist. They would have you to go and see an orthopedic surgeon or orthopedic physician or what's not, right? And something that you shared that I think is worth just double backing on is oftentimes leaders, that there may be chaos, and it is more advantageous for you to do what physicians do, which is seek a referral, an outside source, someone like a Franco Charles to come in and evaluate where the organization needs to grow. And not even, because there are times when there is no chaos, but there is perhaps, you're starting to see a diminishing return, that the effort you're expelling is not yielding the same returns that you once have. And having a strategist come in like the Charles to evaluate and lend assistance with fresh eyes is so significant. And of course, for those that are looking to grow with regard to and being an author or just personal development, the coaching is so significant, right?
It's very significant,
right? I want to ask you some fun questions, and before we sign off on this particular episode.
Yes, sir.
Some of your top 5 reads of all times, any books, any categories. What are your 5 top favorite books?
But that's a good question. The first one is Developing the Leader Within You by John C. Maxwell. Okay. Then you have Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And then you also have Spencer Johnson as an MD, Who Moved My Cheese. I don't know if you heard that one before.
I have.
And another leadership goal would be another one, which is John Maxwell. I'm more in the John Maxwell focus as relates to that. And the final one I will say, man, I had it, but I just didn't remember the title. It's more about dreaming big, and it's from Dr. Phineas. It's about dreaming big. Yeah, own your dream. And I believe that is definitely some of the materials that have helped me along the way. I'm not gonna be, I try to stay away from our mentor, like it go Potential, Kingdom. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna list any of Dr. Miles' book, because I can go all the way from 92 to now. But yes, those are the books that are definitely shaping me even at this time.
Awesome. I am visiting Texas. What is the number 1 or 2 restaurant that I have to eat from? What's one of your favorite restaurants?
My favorite for me, I would say Bobbins. My family and I, we like Bobbins. We really like Bobbins. Bobbins is good.
And what are you eating off the menu?
The red snapper. Red snapper. Yeah.
Red snapper. Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you, are you good in the kitchen? Any baking skill? But you're a hometown boy, man. So you have to, you gotta, even if you fake and answer this question, you're a hometown boy, man.
I could do egg very well. I think my wife and the kids, they love when I do egg. I can do egg. I do egg very, very well.
My wife and I, we have a running joke. I tell her, I said, you cook very good, but I am a good cooker. And I would often, like, if I'm preparing curry or something home, like a Bahamian dish, I would say, listen, we all can't be number one. And so sometimes I would just
Yep.
Awesome. Listen, favorite quote that inspires you, something that you regurgitate often. Share with our listeners.
The one that I would say that inspires me, man, is Simon Sinek. Simon said, if what you're doing you don't love, it becomes work. But when you love something that you do, it becomes passion. And that stayed with me. Every time I get a chance to listen to his videos, it really provokes me. He said, when you're doing something that you don't love, it becomes work. When you're doing something and you love it, it just becomes passion. I try to stay in the passion zone. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to give you the opportunity to share with our listeners final words. If you are joining the podcast, we've had Franco Charles from Empower Leadership Training. Go ahead and check out their website. But I want you to share final words with our listeners that are listening to the podcast.
Dream big. Don't be average. Know that your potential is greater than what you think. Apply the strategies. Make up your mind to be empowered, be intentional, and just live out your dream, because you do bring value.
Awesome. That's so awesome. Yes. Listen, I want to thank you for sharing your wealth of information with us. One more time, share how persons can connect with you, your organization. Share with them your contact information.
Thank you very much. Guys, again, you can go to www.empower.training. That's our website. You can just scroll on there, find out if there's anything that interests you. You can also follow me on Facebook, which is Franco Charles. Our Instagram is Empower Leadership. Or you can just inbox me, just go to Messenger, and I'll be able to respond to you. Most people are surprised that I'm able to respond to them, but I will.
Awesome. Listen, you have been listening to Take the Lead, the podcast with Tasman J, our special guest all the way from Empower Leadership Training, Franco Charles. I want to encourage you that whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you are leading a high school basketball team, if you are a CEO of an organization, if you are simply leading you, that it is yours to take the lead. Thank you for listening to Take the Lead, the podcast with yours truly, Tasman J. Until next time.